Hello, everyone. I'm really excited with our guest today, Mariko Hulmes. She is an artist like me, and I'm so excited to have this conversation. I've been wanting to have this conversation live with her for a long time because we always talk about what it's like in the art world, but we never really share our stories with others. So we thought this would be a great opportunity just to jump on together and just to share what it's like for being an artist for both of us. We have a very similar journey, and it may resonate with a lot of people because I think artists, we have a different path that's so different to everyone else. And sometimes it's nice to hear that you're not the only one going on this path alone, and there's other people are willing to extend themselves and just to show you and lead the way on the path. And this is where we have Mariko and myself. We want to go out there and just show other artists that this is possible, that you can have this life, and it can be an exciting and a big life. And Mariko does some really awesome stuff. She does visual meditations, and she's going to tell you a little bit about that probably near the end. But I just want to ask her the first question. Mariko, what made you decide to be an artist in the first place?
Oh, Kassi, thank you so much for having me, first of all. And to answer your first question, I don't think there was ever a time when I decided to be an artist. I've always been playing with colors, and I've always had art. I was lucky to have parents that provided me with art materials, I guess, and put me into kitty art classes and that sort of thing. But what I when did I really decide to be an artist? And that came and went of really more of a commitment of how much time do I dedicate to doing art during the week. And that fluctuated with having a day job or not, and be having other hobbies or not. And it it really grew over time on what kind of style I wanted to do, as I was always experimenting as well. So I was never a particular kind of artist, and always trying new things and never really committing to being a particular kind of artist
I
until recently, I guess.
I do find that at the start though, because it's sort of putting yourself in that pond. You sort of, the analogy that came to mind was like just putting your feet in the pond, putting your feet in the pond. Then you got the world just yelling at you because you have so many other worldly demands, and art does take a little bit of time, especially when you're experimenting and trying to discover yourself with art. Did you find at the start that your needs of being an artist and the world's needs, or people that you care about needs, sort of got in the way a little bit of putting yourself fully immersely in your art?
It's funny the way you explained the need, because I want to go back to my high school art, the classes that I was taking as art subjects, that I never really gelled with art as a subject. I never was good at the subject of art.
Yes.
I did do Bachelor of Arts at uni, and it was only then that I really got the hang of what, at uni as well, there was more time to dedicate to that particular subject and to explore that particular genre or technique. I mean, it was uni, so it was all introductory anyway. But compared to the high school assessment pieces, and not really understanding what was required, and when I put myself in comparison to what I wanted to do and what I was required to do as an art subject, there was always a gap there, and I was never the best art student in that way. What I found was that my techniques were far better when I was getting tutored one-on-one by this lovely old lady that was living in a retirement home. She was the local artist, and she's the one that really put me on the um, traditional landscapes, traditional portraits, especially animals, with painting and pastels. So that's where I felt more comfortable doing, rather than the more contemporary, experimental, more explanational things that the subjects required me to do.
Yes, I kind of understand that, like, because I did a Bachelor of Fine Arts, and I found there was a bit of a struggle with discovering myself with an artist or coming up with the academic structure, because I remember different teachers. There's teachers that I really gelled with because they were a bit more experimental with learning who you are as an artist, but there were definitely those artists that had a lot of structure of what is art and what isn't art. And it took me a while just to break free from what's conceptual art and what's contemporary art to discover what is art these days. And I noticed that if you explore the internet and explore yourself, that every artist is very different. And is a struggle to break free from your schooling to become the artist you need to be. And this comes to the question, what do you feel, do you think it's more important to be happy as an artist or more important to be successful as an artist?
That's a tricky question, isn't it? Because
Mm.
how do you even define success? Do you define success as being able to sell your art, or just being able to enjoy the fact that you made it, this thing that was enjoyable to make, and it's sitting right there with you now? And I think there's a definite level. There's different levels of what the happiness, what level of happiness you want out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I've been doing art all my life, I'm still a beginner at making an income out of it. So um, I'm not sure if I'm qualified to answer the defining the success as an artist, or the popularity as an artist, and how well do you want to be known. I don't know. I haven't experienced that level of success yet, so it'll be exciting if I am capable of doing that.
Mm.
But it also comes back to, well, what do I enjoy making?
Mm. I, I like, even though you're sort of putting the success in the apple, myself, I believe it's all about the enjoyment, because I think even with a successful life, it's not about making money. It's not about um, making it as a job. It's expanding about your joy in your life and bringing more love to your life. And I think doing art, for me personally, even though I've been doing it since a little girl and practicing, I think I've become better and better and better is because I love it and I enjoy doing it. So I really think you need to invest in the love and being happy being an artist before you even think about comparing yourself to people outside yourself, because if it brings you joy, you're only going to be better and be more successful in your life. Um, I think that's the definition of what success is to you. And it's not always about money and that. It's about feeling
It's
wealthy. Yeah.
it'll be nice, but there's definitely other aspects of success and happiness.
Well, even with me, I still feel like I'm successful, even though I still work part time. And that's because I'm doing what I absolutely enjoy in my life, and that's what brings me success as an artist. You know what I mean? I don't think you need to be academic to compare yourself as an artist. um, I know it's a big conspiracy theory and all this kind of stuff, but I think the art world is actually ruled by the elitists and all that kind of stuff. And I don't really agree with their taste, because I really think art's a personal taste for everyone. So That's the hard thing. The only reason I brought that up, Mariko, and I'm sorry I put you on the spot, it's just because it's something that as an artist we all think about. It's like, how can we be out there and making ourselves known, or how can we make ourselves happy? And I'll come straight to the point. Sorry, I'm waffling here. But I was just thinking there's a big difference of working another job or playing another role and being an artist. And there's, I find for myself, it's always conflicting to be part of, I call it the real world and Kassi world. Um, so it's for me,
I can relate to that a bit.
it's very conflicting. I really hate going to my real life job, and it always feels like, because I'm colorful, always feels like it's a dark gray blue for me to even be in that environment of retail. But when I'm doing my art, it just feels like all these colors are around me, and it makes me feel so joy. So that was the question. Do you find that it's always hard to sort of come back to, as I said, real life, I guess?
Well, for me, the real life, well, my real life revolves around a 4-year-old, and my art journey has taken on a different turn with her around, because when I became pregnant, or just before then, I started to lose my creativity. I started to lose touch with what I had already learnt. Like I said, the traditional type of works that I really enjoyed doing and I was sort of good at. And I wanted to keep doing that, but it became, I don't know, I just became really distant from it. And when I had a baby, and that just took over my life. So it was an effort even to pick up a pencil to scribble. And that's where I had to start all over again
Mm-hmm.
to even be able to answer what the heck
Yeah.
creativity meant for
I,
me.
I guess so, because having a child's a big responsibility. And I guess even though, like you brought up creativity, it sort of challenged you with what creativity is with you. Did you find with raising your child that your creativity did play a part in that as well? Like you, even though,
Yes.
oh,
Oh,
sorry.
the raising of the child, being able to respond to her, and being able to play with her was a challenge.
Oh,
Like that I was at that low point of my life that I found it really difficult to connect with other people,
mm-hmm,
and I was having a difficult time connecting with my child, and that was I was putting my giving myself a really hard time over that too,
mm-hmm,
and that, I'd find myself with a spare bit of time and trying to do my art and just not happening. And then I'd get distracted by her anyway with her
mm-hmm.
um, with baby needs.
Yes.
Um, it eventually evolved into, okay, if scribbling is the only thing I can do, well, that's just going to have to, I'm just going to have to be happy with that.
Mm-hmm,
And it was a whole deconstruction of, okay, I need to let the perfectionism go of the traditional type art,
mm,
and where does that leave me? So it was when was able to do a few lines, it was like, okay, the few lines, I'm just going to have to be happy with the few lines.
yeah. Well, thank you for your honesty with that. Did you find just being an artist, just doing those few lines, so was such a release for you? Like,
Not
because I know,
really.
not really.
Not well. It it was getting used to it again, and
Mm-hmm.
being okay, more than a release or a relief. It was
Yeah.
getting used to, okay, that's what I'm going to do now.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's the next line going to look like, and what's the next line, and that's how I eventually became okay with doodling. And which is where I just doodle all the time now. And I had to break away from what, I used to doodle in my notebooks in school, and I had to break away from the fact that I was using what used to be a distraction became my actual life.
Oh, that's
But,
pretty cool, because you not only did you deal with like time restraints, you had to deal with your perfectionist and your inner critic as well at the same time, by just accepting these doodles as enough. And I think
yeah.
that was like, even at the time, I could see how frustrating and even maybe heartbreaking that was for you, because coming from an artist, even though you have a beautiful baby, but you still have your dreams and your desires as well, and trying to balance the two, it does get kind of I'm going to say, from my own feelings here, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the thought of anybody taking too much away from my art, it's actually really kind of devastating for me, because it means so much to me. Um, and I'm just feeling that's from my own words, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. It probably was kind of, I need to do this, but I can't do this at the moment because I've got other big responsibilities.
Well, actually, it feels like there was a time in my life where it was other way around for me, where even though I love doing art, I just didn't have the time to do it, and I was I I had a full-time job and other commitments and family commitments and blah blah blah, and I figured that out. I've got 10 minutes. I am able to sit down for 10 minutes. And so I did that for 100 days. 10 minutes for 100 days, and I posted every day online. And there's a definite sitting for 10 days and only committing to the 10 minutes for every day for 100 days. Like, even though that didn't feel like much at the time, looking back over those 100 images, I could see the progression, and I think that's when I realized that where I'm at is okay.
Yes.
And what the commitment I'm able to do is okay, because there's this, as long as there's the commitment, there's progression.
I really wish I had your patience and your commitment at the time. I just remembered when I did have a full-time job, just because, like you, I was a perfectionist myself. So I believe that anything I put my feet in, I had to do it 100%. So I took on a job and just gave my art, just pushed it aside like it was nothing. And I was doing really well at my job, but then I started to get really, really depressed. And I think I was to the point where I actually had to get help. But I found that if I just did my art and stopped being such a perfectionist for everyone else, that I would have been okay. It's interesting because I thought to be successful was to actually be good at everything you did.
And that's the message I think the society
yeah,
tends to say.
yes, but it's not really good if you're going totally against your personality and totally against who you are just to be good at something. And I found that was my lesson from leaving my art, is learning to come back to myself no matter how hard something pushes you the other way. And I don't think that I'm the only artist, or you're the only artist that experienced that. It's just that you found time to still do your art, and I think that's great.
So that was my first 100 days block of anything I've done consecutively, and that really set the tone for the next thing I did, which was just a month before my daughter's first birthday. So she was 11 months. We had the new year, and I went to a channel session with someone, you know, Anne Ellison, and she was starting this process called I am enough, and she was repeating that multiple times a day. So she suggested I do it as well. So I set my phone alarm up 3 times a day. The words "I am enough" on the calendar section, with the task section. And the first day I didn't like it. I'll be honest, I didn't like it. I argued with it, and that's not correct. That is really not correct. I really am not. So I'm arguing with Anne, going, this isn't working for me. So she said that I am perfectly enough.
I think
so that process. So she gave that to me to do for 100 days. Just listen, just read the message for 100 days, see where that takes you. So that's when I started to write I am enough as well. It took me another couple of days to actually write the words on paper, which then it became, again with the doodles, I started to scribble around the letters, or turn the letters, do fancy letters, and leave messages around the house. And it turned into this thing that I would do occasionally, and I found myself being able to say it to other people easier. So I would write I am enough for other people, like you are enough.
I believe you have that. Oh, sorry, you go.
Yeah, so I got my pens out and got the colors out, and there was, I think it might have been a month into that process. So there was one of those charity people in the middle of the shopping centre. They were collecting messages for these kids overseas somewhere, and like, okay, I've got a message for you. So I think that was the first time I took up the entire page, because they had a note, like a scrapbook that they were going to send to this school or something, or orphanage. I don't remember the specifics or the particulars of the organisation, but they had this scrapbook that they were going to send to these kids, and people had already written nice messages or little drawings in it, and I'm like, I'm taking up the entire page. And that was the first time I went all in with this, you are totally enough, no matter what happened to you. And I'm gonna cry.
Oh no, it's okay. It means so much to you. I believe you also have colouring books that you can colour in with I am enough and more positive things as well. You should.
Yeah, so the 100 days, eventually I had this stack of drawings that are going, okay, what do I do next? And like, well, colouring books are popular at the moment. Okay, so I figured out how to self-publish using Lulu, and that's my first book. I self-published. I mean, that's backwards there, but colouring enoughness.
Yes.
And all the pages have I am enough, either as part of the drawing, or the letters are decorated.
It is quite a beautiful book. I've actually downloaded some of the colouring pages for myself for when I also wasn't feeling so great about myself, because sometimes I am enough, or those words, it takes a little bit of effort to actually believe that you're enough. It's not just I can say you're enough. As you said, you had to work within 100 days. I think I did something similar to you, and the first day is like, oh, I am enough. You giggle it off. You like really do giggle off. But when you start writing it, when you start coloring it, once you start experiencing those positive words to yourself, you actually start thinking more and more and more. And like you, I think I broke down as well, because just saying I am enough, you got these challenging voices in your head saying all the critical things that could potentially drown that I am enough out. But the more you work with it, the more you color it, the more experience, the more you say it, it sort of grows and grows and grows. So there's other voices that are critical. So there's just float away, and one day you just really believe it. And
And
that's why
there's different enoughness. I am enough to be able to self-publish. That's that the entire process took me to be able to do that. So now I know how to self-publish on this particular platform, which I don't know if I would have if I wasn't in that process, or if the publishing wasn't part of the just an extension of that process. But rewinding to when my daughter was 1 at the time. My daughter was 1 that year, and I was saying it to her. To say it to her was much easier than to say it to myself. But because I was the one saying it, I was hearing it for myself too. And that, I think that helped as well, hearing my voice, even though I wasn't speaking directly to me.
I guess, though, you also want to be a good influence as well, to make sure that she wasn't, because there's always, children mimic the people they love, I guess. So I guess there was maybe was there that part of you that felt responsible for her self-esteem as well through you? Yeah.
Yeah, and she's 4 now, so she definitely is able to comprehend some things that I expose her to. So it's I do feel definitely a responsibility there. And okay, is what I'm doing helpful for her?
Yes.
And that actually, this brings right back to one of your original questions of what's the difference between the needs of others and needs of yourself. And well, this is where things get blurred, because what I want to do is what I'm making going to bring joy to anybody else?
Of course.
If it doesn't, if it's just me, that's fine. It can stay in my house. But if I'm going to be sharing the images online, just photos or published books,
yes,
is it going to be useful? Which I have received feedback that it has been.
I think that's a question that every artist, even though we enjoy doing it and exploring art for ourselves because it feels so good to do it, but I think that's something every artist feels like. It's like, I'm drawing this, but is it useful? Because I don't think that's an artist's desire, because I think it's the world desire. Because I know, I'm not sure if it happened to you, but I've had so many people saying, oh, that's a pretty picture, but what can you do with it? Is it useful? And that sort of undermines an artist, and it kind of really hurts a little bit as well. But my theory, and this is just a theory, I think as an artist, we're also channelers. We channel all our feelings, people's feelings around us, the universal feelings, because I know me as an artist, I have a strong passion towards the environment, a strong passion to others. I'm an empath as well. So I believe all these experiences that I filter through my body and through my heart come out on paper, and I believe that's the role of an artist. What do you feel about that, Mariko?
I've I've had such a challenge connecting with other humans.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's only recently that I've become really comfortable to even be able to have this kind of conversations with different people. And part of the art process is that it's always been in my head of what do I see, what the world that I see is being able for that to come out on paper, and that's great. But is that useful for anybody else? Well, there were times when it really wasn't. Just because I was in here so much, not being able to relate to other people. And this is part of where I've had challenges with commissions, especially where people would ask me to do something, and what I wouldn't be able to connect what they wanted with what I'm capable of doing, which was really difficult for me to and yeah, it was a self-esteem thing that I suck at this. But what I'm discovering is that maybe that's not what I'm meant to be doing. That that what I can do is to say that these are the things that I have made. Which ones out of this do you like? I think that's also been part of why I've stayed away from an artistic career, being part of a bigger organization as well, with me relating to humans, again, just a big challenge, massive employment challenge. First of all, let alone working within a creative team. That's something that I have always had challenge with, being, again, isolated and not quite fitting in with the people world, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
So I'm sorry, I can't remember what your question was.
Oh, that's okay.
I don't belong on this planet. What the heck I'm doing? And that's been my starting point of I don't belong here, but I have all these things happening in my head. Is it useful for anybody else?
As I said, I believe it is, and I've been part of your journey for like about 2 or 3 years now, and just being an observer, I feel that your words and your truth and what comes through with your work, it's an absolute honesty, and that's what I feel when I look at your art, and I feel like that connection through your art of being honest and true to yourself and an expansion of yourself, because that's what your art reminds me of, is coming back to yourself through all your vulnerabilities and just really accepting and loving yourself as you are. I think to me, it's probably because I've been following you for a long time, but I definitely really connect with your art. Also, I find that with me, even though I've been a people person and I don't know if I'm an extrovert or an introvert myself, because sometimes I need to run away from people because people just feels like, I guess I'm putting I don't feel like I can be totally true in this world sometimes. And it might be that fear that you have, that if people actually see me as me, they might run away. So it takes a lot of energy for me to put I wouldn't say I'm a mask, because I am myself. I'm just a different aspect of myself. But just to hide different parts of my personality takes a lot of energy from me. So I feel like you, is that I don't really fully connect with everyone that I'm experiencing. And that sort of makes me sad, and it does drain a lot of my energy. Even though I'm talking to lots and lots of people, like because I work in retail part time and I'm also connecting with people weekly. So I do talk to a lot of people, but I find that takes a lot of energy because I can't just be myself out there in the world. And sometimes I feel like I do lack connection with others. And that makes me sad too. I just do it in a different way than you. So I don't think that's uncommon for an artist to feel like they weren't born here. Um, I had a lot of sadness going through that journey of, well, of not feeling like I'm a part of this world, that nobody really loves me or accepts me in this world. But I was able to transform that with being with people that are like me, who are going through the same journey as me. And I feel like maybe I'm out of this world, but I've sort of come to accept that that's not a bad thing sometimes. That sometimes it's great to be out of this world. Maybe I'm just like a little alien come to this place just to help them out, you know what I mean? Because I know, like you, you're vulnerable, you're loving, you're caring. So sometimes I feel like sometimes we're just here to feel a little bit indifferent, but just explode in the world with everything that we have to offer through our art and expression. So we can just change it up a little bit. So I guess
Yeah,
that's what I think.
I feel like you've touched a few things where I'm being led to now with the maybe I'm doing my art to show people how to do it,
Mm,
how to speak truth. And my challenge with the speech, and because I've always been a visual, colorful, more expressive with lines and paint and messiness, that I feel like my people are those people that haven't been able to actually put words
mm,
to what they're experiencing, and there are different ways that English sentences isn't the only way of expressing yourself.
yes.
And the way you express yourself is okay,
Mm,
and to look after yourself is okay, and that what you have to offer from here is just going to evolve out of what those two things, that you don't have to know what you're doing on this planet right now, but you're here and you've got your way of communicating, whatever that is, and other people are just going to have to learn your language.
that's such a beautiful message to share. Like, um, and a lot of people, like, especially, like, I know me, I struggle, and then I think, oh, I shouldn't have said that way, and I shouldn't have been that way. And I think that's a struggle for a lot of people, just to accept that vulnerability in myself, that really that you're more than capable and you're more than enough, as you keep like. And I think that's your message, that doesn't matter how different you are, you're still enough. You still got a love and a lot to offer this world. I think that's what I really love about your work and what you're sharing with the world.
And I'd like to point out this hasn't been just me figuring it out. I've had a lot of help along the way, including from you.
I definitely want it. That's part of my life. I want to support people as much as I can.
And so what's next? I don't know.
Well, as you said, does it really matter?
Oh, it does. It does. Are you going to enjoy yourself? Are you able to enjoy yourself? Because that's my theme for this year, joy. And to go back to the beginning of the year, I had no idea. My mental health slipped back because of personal dramas, and this year I just went, I need to back away from everything and discover what joy is, because I don't know what that is anymore, and just going to enjoy myself, whatever that looks like. If I get a laugh out of something, that's something that I want to keep around for a little bit longer. So that's where I felt like I was back to the beginning at the beginning of the year. But I really wasn't as well, because I've already done all that work of I Am Enough. I've reintroduced my phone alarms. I now swap between I Love Me and I Am Enough. Because I've got nobody around me that says I love you. Well, I don't live with anybody. I don't hear it from another person on a daily basis. I mean, I've got people around me that love me. I know that, but to have that verbally spoken to me on such a regular basis, I don't have that. So my phone does that for me.
To be honest, I have things like that on my phone. My wake up call is "Good morning, beautiful." Or are you like at 5 o'clock in the day before I have to go to work, just to cheer myself up a little bit, because I know work always puts me in a bad mood. I usually say, "Are you having a great day, beautiful?" So I do things like that to help me out too, because I know when I know half an hour before I go to work, my mood just drops. So I just say, "Are you having a good day, beautiful?" And it just makes me feel a lot better. So I completely understand that.
This is my third year of having the phone alarm, and had a 1 to 3-year-old, and I'm not with my phone all the time. I am sometimes, but not all the time. So I will hear the alarm if I'm not with my phone. And that just, I've heard it so many times. I've heard that particular alarm so many times. That sequence of noise just automatically translates as I love me.
Oh, wow.
So I think that having that sort of tricks along the way really helps. And yeah, the creativity thing, going back to one of your original questions, when I started the I Am Enough thing and I was writing it, there were times when I didn't have pencil and paper, and this was like 11 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock at night, where whatever time the baby's woken up and the room's dark, and I'd be on my phone, and so I'd swap my game apps to photo editing apps. And I just started to play around with the graphics with that, and again, typing the words I am enough, and just playing around with colors, and that eventually I discovered something called fractals, which I didn't know anything about previously, but there were few phone apps available to explore the mapping of or just scrolling the numbers and changing the images that way. And I didn't know what I was doing. I was just scrolling on the screen, and it came up with pretty combination of colors, so I was pretty happy with that. And 4 o'clock in the morning, that led me to actually upload them into Photoshop and making them larger files, and that was the beginning of when I started to upload onto Redbubble for print. I found Redbubble to be the easiest platform to navigate as far as t-shirt printing went. There's plenty of other platforms available, but with my foggy mind, and I just needed something to work just simply, So that was the most straightforward thing I found at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I ended up with doing these things and these things.
It looks so lovely behind you too, like your image. I love it. Kind of has like it helps you have a glow behind you because like in the image, your head just fits nicely behind it.
Yeah, so that I was already familiar with Photoshop. I took it took a bit of exploring to get used to other programs. What's that one? Not InDesign. The other one,
Oh, Illustrator?
Illustrator. And just again, just mucking around. By that time, I had two hands free with a baby that could sit. Because previously, she was a Velcro baby that I couldn't do anything. I really could not do anything without her, like attached here. And then she got too big, so attached to my back. So by the time I went, I have two hands. I was pretty excited, and so that's how I ended up with 3 published books in the 1 year, because I just kept that process going and learning more on the programs and just exploring what the programs had the possibility of, and I only just scratched the surface of what the programs
That's so
can
amazing.
actually do.
Such amazing way and such an ingenious way of looking after your own needs, but also learning about yourself being a new mum as well, because obviously, especially if you had a child that was really connected with you, to sort of find
Yeah.
time for her as well as yourself, and you found a really inventive way to do that, as well as learn to expand yourself and your art. You should feel really great about that.
So she's always been on this journey of me making things, and then I joined a video group to learn how to present these things, to talk about my art and getting clarity around who I'm speaking to and what's my message. And I still have no idea, but I'm here. And just like I said, because I have such challenge around the actual speaking part of it, it's like, well, let's get the talking going first, and then I'll figure out the marketing and the technicalities of using the social media platforms and that side of things later.
I think that's just an artist thing. I struggle with that. It's like, this is how they tell me this needs to happen, but I just feel like I need a lot more connection than having a structure. You know, I like it more organic, or just I guess being an artist and the way I do it. I just like the flow of just turning up and speaking. Like when I have too much structure, I feel like I balk at it. Are you the same? It's like, oh, I structure, balk.
Although the structure in these video challenges, they've been helpful in actually getting to the point, because a lot of these that you only speak for 2 minutes. You got to you have to have the point at like 10 seconds in, and you have another minute to talk about what you want to talk about. So
I guess.
And having this distracted child at the other end of the house, I only have right now to get on camera. And it last year with a 3-year-old was really difficult because she just wanted to get into everything. And I joined a thing for a short time and just didn't work, because the commitment it takes to work on a business and having a 3-year-old by myself wasn't working. So so that's another reason why this year I just went, I don't know what joy is. I need to find that first.
Oh, it would have been really, really stressful because it's like trying to squeeze so much out of everything that's in your life and trying to find that balance. And I think you said before that you are a bit of a perfectionist and you like to do things right and make things like right the first time. And with your energy going so many places, I can understand why you feel flat and need to learn about joy again. And it's
And
difficult.
the biggest conflict was that because I've had this 2 minute, 5 minute screen time, the camera time that I was able to have, what's on camera was not what was happening behind the scenes of me
Mhm.
yelling at her and just her being a curious 3-year-old getting into things, and my relationship with her father was just all over the place. And it was really conflicting, especially with my message. A message of, love, light, and rainbows. Of you're good enough just as you are. And there's happiness that I was projecting, and it really wasn't happening behind the scenes. I can be honest about that now.
Yeah.
And it was, yeah, there was the turning point was when um I had this dancing thing, this silly dancing thing happening, and while I was doing that, she got into the fridge and spilled something, and I just went bananas at her, and it's like, well, it's just spilled,
Milk.
spilled sauce. Why are you getting so angry about it? Well, no, I would, because nobody else is going to clean that up. It's me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, where the fuck is my joy?
Yes. So,
She's got her joy. She's got her joy figured out.
well,
She's she's absolutely free to explore whatever it is that she feels like going, and I'm here doing the cleanup after her, going, where the fuck is my joy? And that really was a turning point. Going, this isn't
not
this
right.
this being on camera talking about love, light, and rainbows, and things happening behind behind the camera, behind, in the other room.
I guess it's
Uh,
all. I, I guess it's always good to have a good attitude about life, but sometimes life's not like that at all. Like sometimes you have to. I guess sometimes dramas play out inside of you because I'm always happy. I turn up and that, but sometimes like I feel like I could just tell people to go away, you know what I mean? But I know of me, I'm hiding behind the mask of I'm happy. I can't tell people that. But there's feelings inside of me that I wish I could tell people just to, you know, but you do bite your tongue sometimes, and sometimes you do have little dramas in life, no matter how much of a positive you are. Something triggers you,
sure.
and I guess in that circumstances, having little time to yourself to explore and that you probably missed that, and that was what was triggered in you, you know what I mean? Like I know at work I'm triggered lots because I want to be in control of my life. And I like having control of my life. I like being absolutely responsible for my life. But I get triggered by people just telling me really stupid things. Like I could use an example at work. I was 2 minutes until 5, and like my manager said you're late, and I looked at the time, it's like I got 2 minutes, and that really triggered me. It was so small, but that triggered me, and I was telling my head, like I think I spent 40 minutes just telling my head to go, like telling her to go and get effed and all this kind of stuff. But that was like 40 minutes of me being angry over something really stupid, and it's just because I had that need, a really ingrained need of wanting to be in control and responsible for my own life. I guess with you, you wanted to have that freedom to expand and create yourself. Not create yourself, but just be creative. And since you have lack of time, it's hard for you at the moment. So maybe that was the reflection you needed from that.
And going back to the example you gave, do you find that you were stewing because you were then working, so you didn't have that time to get rid of it however you usually get rid of?
Yes, I did. It's felt like because I had to put that face on and not be my authentic self. Because if I told her to say, like, I felt disappointed in myself, because if it was friends and family, I would just say, hang on, you've been a little bit silly, like you wake up to yourself. But I felt because of her position, I guess I felt like I got to keep my mouth closed, and I don't like that control. Like I feel like I want to be a little bit more free to express myself, and I hate that feeling of not feeling real, if that makes sense. And that was my trigger.
Yeah, so that's all of that's probably included in why I'm more open about what's happened in the last couple of years, and especially with mental health, of where I've been, and how I've dealt with my triggers, and just noticing, being able to not even notice, but being able to say that this certain thing triggered me. Like I wrote about something that happened over the weekend, and I kept the person anonymous. Now, because I'm also mindful that too, where I've been having trouble previously was that how do I separate what's happening and other people being involved, and where my reactions are, and how am I involved, and my desire to keep everything confidential was the thing that kept my lid. Like that's part of what kept me silent for so long. And now I'm discovering ways of I can still talk about events without naming the person. Just the fact that it was someone that I met, and my readers will, because of the massive contacts that I have, they probably will know if I gave any sort of context on location or the actual situation. So it's like, well, how can I be vague enough about this person and what they said, or whatever it did, whatever trigger is there for me? How can I talk about my reaction and what I did about it, or what I remembered? Because that's part of the trigger of past whatever else has happened previously. And sometimes it's okay to reveal the person, and sometimes it's just not.
I guess when you reveal something that's personal, there's that responsibility of also considering others as well.
And I've stayed in that considering about others a lot more than necessary for so long. Because, well, that's part of my conditioning of you do think about other people, and you care about them, and you don't want to accidentally hurt them. It's probably going to happen anyway, and you just love them so much that you want to keep quiet on whatever stuff that they're going through.
Yeah.
But that part was part of how I ended up in such a bad space in my head as well, because I was also not, I felt like I couldn't talk about me.
Mm, I I can understand that. Like it's when you talk about honestly about your journey and what you've been through, you just think like you have to cover up parts of it, or something bad might happen if you reveal parts of it. And I guess like I could probably talk about it better now because my dad's passed away, so there's no conflict on him. But the trauma I had with him, I felt like I had to have a censorship on that for his sake, not my own sake. And I really needed to talk about it with people, but I didn't want him to be the bad person, but he had it affected me as well. So I really can understand that, especially when it's been such an intense journey about discovering yourself. Because with feelings, it's not, I guess it's not just what you have done to yourself, I guess it's what other people, exploring other people's energy as well. Because I believe we're a container not just for ourselves, but we're a container for others as well, because we are all connected as well.
Did your dad look at any of your stuff?
Sorry.
Was your father familiar with what you were doing?
um I believe so. Like my family and me being an artist has been an interesting journey. I was actually really honestly thinking about this morning. When I was a younger girl, they like, I was always wanted to be an artist since I was 5 years old. There was like absolute support till I went to school, and then they said, really, like I guess this is a lot of artistic children. They're like padded and groomed, and it's like, yes, that's great if you're an artist. And when you're a child, your parents are so proud of you to be an artist. But then when the real world hits, they start not supporting you as much as to say, haha, you probably best look at it to get a real job now. You know what I mean? And that was very conflicting for me. And my dad always supported me in a way, but then I wasn't sure because he always called me my little bullshit artist and made fun of it, that I was an artist, and never really took me seriously. So I guess that really affected me. And I guess the same with the rest of my family. It's like, okay, you're a good drawer, but where's the real job? You know what I mean? I guess that pushed me into that job where I was successful, but I totally hated myself at the same time because it's not what I needed to be. But it made me think today, like, that's what happens to children. We're taught to play and explore ourselves and be the people we need to be. But then it's like this big shift when you get to high school. It's like, now you got to start thinking about what you want to do in real life. It's like, well, I had this figured when I was 5 years old. Come on. And it's like, no, seriously, Kassi, you can't be that. And I think that happens to a lot of people.
Yeah, just I don't want to call it the inability, but just the narrowness of what real world
Mm.
looks like.
But
Oh no, only select few become artists. When the definition of an artist is as a career is so wide.
exactly.
Like, there's so many possibilities to be creative, even when maybe you're not directly drawing as a job.
I think there's like, going through the whole journey of becoming an artist myself, I just realized there's so many lies that people tell you out there, so many that are just there to undermine you and tell you you can't have it. But when you actually do sit down, as even if it's the 10 minutes a day that like you did, that's probably all it takes. You can be an artist. And it's really, I think, to be an artist yourself, it's a really simple process if you love doing it, to be an artist. But I think it's the challenge. Well, I found my challenge is overcoming all the lies that are being told to me since I've been young, and really reconnecting to that 5-year-old who just created, and just had the whole world at her feet and created her own worlds. To come back and reconnect with that was probably my hardest experience, just to believe that could be me again. I'm not sure if it was similar to you, but I don't think I'm the only artist to do that.
There's certainly a lot of stuff said about there's just the hierarchy of importance at school.
Mm-hmm.
Certain subjects being more of a priority than others.
Yeah.
The commitment, and there's definite commitment to, maybe it doesn't have to be every day, but definitely making time, which I haven't been consistent throughout the years. And now because my daughter's getting more involved in discovering what she likes doing, that it's becoming easier for me to be involved in her play. And I honestly found 2 and 3 to be difficult, just like how to engage, especially where my mental health was at, with not knowing what joy was. But just her level of exploring and the repetitiveness, and do we really need to do this again? Yeah. And I'm also finding myself, I'm learning more about ADHD as well, with my own distractedness. So I'm finding short, if I'm going to make something, it needs to be quick. So maybe that's that doesn't make me like have a full-on backstory about how this thing came about, and it's more like, well, because I felt like it, first of all, and it was in the short enough time frame that I was able to, between me being distracted with my own world to begin with and having a child with her distractions, between those 2 things, I was able to complete it. So making meaning out of what I've made has always been a challenge. Like I said, that I found contemporary art and the essays that went with the schoolwork really challenging. And so I'm finding it now that I've got a collection of things, I can see a thread of where this is going, of me speaking my truth and me looking after myself and me attempting to connect with the rest of the world, and that people are hurting. There's people are hurting, and there's ways of recovery. There's different ways. There's just different ways. Different things are going to work for different people, and that's okay. And I found that's more of the overarching theme rather than why did I make this particular thing. Well, that's because I made it because I had 2 minutes to myself.
I think that story is like, you attempting to connect with people and understanding their hurt should be enough. But I know what you're saying, because I had the same struggles as me. It's like it just came from my heart. I'm not sure what my heart was trying to say. Maybe later I go and look at it and then I understand it. I think even at uni I used to paste it on Facebook. It's like, what does this mean to you? And I let people write it for me, and that worked.
And it's great when you get a response, but what do you do when you don't? And that's I've had a couple of those where it did impact my self-esteem, going, why doesn't people like my things? And then it just so happened that people just didn't see it, or didn't get it, or it just wasn't their thing, or there's a few different reasons why they didn't comment. It's got nothing to do with the work or who you are as a person, most importantly. And people who are going to give you feedback are it's going to be useful. If people have a problem with it, it's going to be useful.
Well, I feel relying on social media as an artist is probably a big downfall in your confidence. I think if you really, really, really need to get feedback, you actually have to ask for it, like sort of have that connection with others, because I went through that phase of feeling really bad about myself because of social media, especially when you first start off posting as an artist, because it is a very vulnerable time because you want people to like who you are. But I think when you mature and actually start conversations with people and not thinking about your likes and all that kind of stuff, I think you sort of develop more of a connection with your art. And I don't know, it's just me. I think the connection I have with my art and the connection people have with my art is probably more important than any likes. Because I found being an artist, I have probably not a big broad range of people who are fans, but I have a very committed and I have to say connected people that follow me, and I think that's more important to me than having a whole lot of strangers liking my stuff. I'm not sure if that's the same with you.
And what I do know about your art is that it's so personal,
Mm,
and the individual, I'm going to call them characters, but your animals, they have this, even though you may have had a specific message come through with them, that I think everyone, when they look at your art or they look at your animals, they'll receive something slightly different,
mm-hmm,
and they just have this different relationship with them.
mm. Well, I guess that's what they're made for because they really speak to me. Like, as I said, I do believe they're my spirit guides and spirit guides because they speak to me. And I've been told they speak to other people too. Like, I know that sounds crazy, and I felt like I was a bit of a nutter, but I had 3 people tell me that when I started doing this work, 3 people told me that this is what I've got to do, and that's what I was thinking for a long time. And I believe the universe has a weird way of working, so I just did it, and I'm still here doing it 2 years later. So I believe if they talk to me, they talk to others as well.
I don't know if you remember my comment, the one you gave me, that I've met her years and years ago before
Yes,
before you brought her to life.
I know. It gives me goosebumps on my neck, but I made an agreement with the universe to do this work, and I'm doing this work, and I guess um, that's probably one of the reasons I've gone away from mainstream and to do my own thing and not working in a company and that, because I want to follow I believe we have intuition. I believe we're instinctual by nature. I believe there's much more than corporation out there. And I guess I do my art this way because I feel like I want to connect with the universe, and this is my way of connecting with the universe. And I guess that's why I've gone this way. It sort of doesn't make a lot of sense. And when people ask me, why do you do these? It's like, do I tell them the trippy sort of answer that universe wanted me to do this? Or do I just say, I love drawing animals? You know what I mean? Most of the time I just say, I love drawing animals because it just keeps it simple. And I think sometimes I lie to a lot of people just saying, I like doing fantasy art. It's because I haven't accepted myself fully as an artist yet. So I might look confident in that, but there's times when I just can't be that person and I feel bad about it.
I think fantasy just covers that basis as well of that you're inviting them to, well, you're welcome to believe or not.
Exactly. I guess because fantasy, I'm a story buff. I'm a fantasy story buff. Like, I had the never ending story in my mind because I've been watching Stranger Things and they had never ending story in part of it. It's like, now I've been thinking of that and just how I got involved with that story and how it meant so much more to me than actually reading a book. And I guess that could be the same with my art, that some people could just say it's art, but it could be find a person like me and like you that explores it and find so much more, I guess. uh, I'm still a big hit at art. I'll never take that away from me.
Don't ever grow up. It's
Oh,
not.
I'm trying not to. Yeah. I, I think this has been really great. I wanted to know what was your struggles. I got a lot more, and I think this was so valuable learning about um you more as an artist as well, and just seeing what you've had to go through to achieve being where you are now. It's been amazing, and I
It's
really
been great.
enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Would there be anything you'd like to share with me or the people who watch this?
I've given you the links, Kassi, to
Mhm.
my shops. So, like I said, I've self-published on lulu.com.
Mhm.
Um, you can just search my name, Mariko Hulmes, on the search bar, and the shop will come up. And same with the Redbubble shop. That's got all my art prints available. So that's from mugs, notebooks, t-shirts, clocks, various different items. Again, search my name, and I think that's the most straightforward to find my works. But
Mhm.
Kassi, you've got my links
Yes,
to
I'll
those.
post them.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'll just leave it here for tonight because I feel like this conversation could go on for a long time, and I should go and cook my dinner for tonight and dinner for my husband, so he's got something to eat when he gets home. But thank you for your time, Mariko. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It was great to just unwind and let a lot off my chest and just really explore you and your art a lot more. And thank you
It's been
for
a
coming on.
pleasure. Thank you.
Mhm. Anyway, I'll let you go. See you later. Bye.
Thank you. Have a good night.